Alrighty, what is up everybody? So this just happened a few hours ago and it's a released statement from Figma.com themselves about the merger between Adobe and themselves being abandoned. And so if you haven't heard this yet, this is a relatively short article. It's on the blog of Figma. I will link it in the YouTube description. I will read through this real quick because, like I said, it's a short read. So if you're like listening on, your phone and you're driving, you can kind of hear what's going on. So essentially, Figma and Adobe have reached a joint decision, let's make this a little bit larger, to end our pending acquisition. It's not the outcome we had hoped for, notice we, but despite thousands of hours spent with regulators around the world detailing differences between our businesses, our products, and the markets we serve, we no longer see a path towards regulatory approval of the deal. So just to interject my own thoughts here, this is essentially asserting that they wanted it to work out, but external forces known as the state, the nation state, the government, decided that they will not approve this deal, I think particularly in the UK. So we entered into this agreement 15 months ago with the goal of accelerating what both Adobe and Figma could do for our respective communities. While we leave that future behind and continue as an independent company, we are excited to find ways to partner for our users. So amid the uncertainty of a pending acquisition, I'm deeply proud of how the Figma team delivered for our community. We feel that we have only continued to accelerate our pace over the past 15 months. And so going on, basically, there's not much more to be said from this blog post at least. Now, before giving my personal opinion on the matter, I will check out just a few prominent tweets that are worth mentioning. If you type in Figma, my buddy Jack Forge here basically states, breaking Adobe and Figma are no longer merging. Adobe begins development on new product called Ligma that is definitely not exactly like Figma. So this post right here from Adet Sheth, breaking Adobe Advantage $20 billion acquisition of Figma. If you recall, it's a $20 billion acquisition, but as a termination fee, Adobe must pay Figma $1 billion in cash. What? So Figma still wins. Adobe and Figma strongly disagree with the regulatory findings, but we believe it is in our best interest to move forward independently. All right, so that's basically what I was speculating about. Was this the government that basically stopped them? And if this is true, then it's a regulatory findings issue. Again, I'll give my opinions here in a second. Dan right here, another kind of a co-influencer, hate that term, in the design space. I think Figma will be bigger than Adobe anyways. See you down here. This is Dylan Field. This is actually a co-founder or the founder of Figma itself. That's just linking to that article. Nathan Barry is a founder of ConvertKit. And this is an interesting thought here. So a few thoughts. I don't think this should have been blocked. The regulators' case about competition is pretty weak. I agree. This is ultimately good for Figma. Their innovation and engineering is legendary, and I think they'll be able to grow significantly in the next 5 to 10 years. I think I pretty much agree with that as well, especially considering a $1 billion payout. Number 3, this is bad for the overall market and economy. Startups need liquidity for a healthy ecosystem. I halfway agree. Companies should be very careful, should think very carefully about creating nexus in the UK if it can mean such a detrimental outcome as this. And what he means by that is the government essentially banning mergers. And then number 5, I wish there was a good path to buying Figma stock. So here's my thoughts about the whole debacle, essentially. First of all, coming from just a basic economic 101 perspective, and this is something everybody should understand, is that competition is good for the users. Competition is what breeds better innovation. It's what breeds better customer support. It's what breeds just a better overall product experience for everybody. Why? Well, if you just have one product and they rule it all, then they can get away with charging a lot, really high fees. They can get away with bad customer support. It's why the government sucks. They are a territorial monopoly. Every government sucks. Some suck worse than others, but if you think about it, they are a monopoly over a given territorial region. That's why when it comes to government support, like if you're dealing with the BMV, the DMV, whatever, it's synonymous with bad, just rude people who work in it, and there's hardly any innovations because they're a monopoly. It's the same thing in the free market or the private market. You don't want monopolies. So why am I talking about competition? Well, you can pretty much bet yourself that Adobe's not going to abandon the UI UX industry. They had Adobe XD, which I don't know what they're going to do about it, if they're going to bring that back and continue developing their native desktop solution, because it was really good. So I don't see them abandoning that. So we get Figma still, but we're also going to get Adobe's, their version of whatever the response is to Figma, unless they buy something else. So that means more competition. Now, of course, what Nathan Barry had said is that on the other front, the flip side of the coin, that it's bad for the overall market and economy. Startups need liquidity for a healthy ecosystem. So, regulators getting in and preventing businesses from merging and stuff is not necessarily a good thing. I don't think that there's a leg to stand on if the government's going to insist that by this merger, there will be no other alternatives or a few other alternatives. There's nothing preventing anybody, a group of people, getting together and making a competing product on the internet. All right. It doesn't take a massive amount of resources to build a product on the internet. And so as such, I think it's important to recognize that while I think on one hand it's good to have more competition, on the other hand, we can't be having government getting in and telling us, who we can merge with and who we can't. Especially on the internet, where it's an open platform where anybody can build almost anything they want. Just look at PenPot, for instance, which is an open source response to Figma. All right, so that's my thoughts pretty much overall. It sucks that for them it didn't work out because we got the state involved, unfortunately. But for us as users, it's also a good thing. On the other hand, simply because we have two big behemoths that are going to try to one-up each other in order to try to get more people to use their products. So for me, it's not a huge deal. Figma will still exist. Adobe will still exist. Adobe has some decisions. I'm not sure if they made them yet. Maybe they will bring back XD. Maybe they'll do something new. I'm not sure. But let me know what you think in the comments below about this news. For me, I'm just going to keep it on as usual, and I'm not going to lose much sleep over it. All right, everybody. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you soon. Goodbye.